Welcome to This Explainer. We're jumping right into a really incredible journey today. We are going to trace exactly how we, as humans, have attempted to teach and learn foreign languages over the past 2 centuries. And let's be honest, sometimes we were successful, and sometimes it was just downright painful. We're going to look at the fascinating ways psychological theories have historically shaped the classroom, and ultimately how modern digital technology is turning everything we thought we knew completely on its head. You know that feeling, right? Think back for a second to your own experiences learning a language in school. Chances are you remember the distinct dread of sitting there repeating these totally robotic phrases after a tape recorder. Or maybe sitting hunched over a textbook, painstakingly translating sentences word for word into your native language. Well, for decades, educators and linguists have heavily criticized those old-school rote memorization drills for being outdated, mechanical, and totally divorced from real communication. Everyone kind of assumed these methods were dying out. But here is the huge, surprising twist we're exploring today. Artificial intelligence isn't killing these classical methods. Actually, it's saving them. It's repurposing them into some of the most dynamic, effective learning tools we've ever seen. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. We'll start with the classical language era, move into the behaviorist bottleneck, explore AI as a linguistic auditor, look at interactive AI voice simulations, and finally discuss the future of ELT. Starting right at the beginning with Section 1, the classical language era, let's see where all of this actually originated. There is a really clear chronological evolution to how we've taught languages. Way back in the 1800s, the grammar translation method, or GTM, completely dominated. Now, this was originally designed to teach dead languages like Latin and Greek, so it focused entirely on written proficiency. You learned explicit grammar rules and translated sentences mechanically. It was an academic exercise, not a communicative one. Then, reacting against this in the early 1900s, came the direct method, which completely banned the native language in the classroom and focused purely on oral immersion. Skip ahead to the 1940s and 50s, and we hit the audiolingual method, or ALM. This was actually born out of military needs for rapid oral fluency during World War II. And eventually, we arrive at communicative language teaching and content-based instruction, which prioritized actual meaning-making over just reciting verb forms. So it's a very clear linear evolution from strict structural accuracy to genuine meaning. That brings us to Section 2, the behaviorist bottleneck. We really need to zoom in on that mid-20th century era and the audiolingual method, because the psychology here gets super interesting. So this era introduces the absolute villain of our story, the affective filter. You see, the audiolingual method was built entirely on B.F. Skinner's behaviorist psychology. That's the idea that learning is literally just mechanical habit formation through constant drilling. In the ALM classroom, teachers demanded flawless repetition, and they corrected errors publicly and immediately. But as later theorized, this intense pressure creates an affective filter. Think about it. When a student is stressed, anxious, or just terrified of making a mistake in front of all their peers, a mental block goes up. The learning process just completely shuts down. The very drills that were meant to build automaticity actually created a high-anxiety bottleneck that prevented true language acquisition. When early technology entered the picture, computer-assisted language learning evolved in distinct phases. At first, technology just mimicked behaviorism with a structural framework. Systems like the old Plato system were used merely to deliver the exact same tedious, unlimited drills, just on a screen instead of from a teacher. But as cognitive psychology later proved that learners need to actively construct knowledge, the role of the computer shifted to providing analytical tasks. Finally, we arrive at the socio-cognitive framework. Here, the computer's role isn't just to be a strict tutor anymore, but to provide alternative contexts for real, authentic social interaction. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, AI as linguistic auditor. Here's where we see the incredible digital repurposing of those old methods. For decades, the grammar translation method literally just meant a student passively decoding text with a bilingual dictionary, hunting for exact, rigid word equivalents. It was tedious and it was incredibly isolating. But today, we don't throw translation away, we elevate it. By using advanced neural machine translation platforms like DeepL, the learner's role completely shifts. They're no longer a passive translator. Instead, they input complex texts, use prompt engineering to generate different variations, say formal versus a more conversational tone, and then act as a critical linguistic auditor. They evaluate the AI syntactical choices and cultural nuances. The AI does the mechanical heavy lifting, right? Which allows the student to actually engage in deep analytical problem solving. The cognitive psychology behind this is actually super powerful. It relies on a concept called noticing. When a student audits an AI-generated translation, They are forced to consciously register the gap between what they would have written and what the native-level AI system produced. They activate their metalinguistic awareness. They have to ask themselves, why did the AI choose that specific verb tense? Why did it use that particular idiom? The historical rote translation drill is transformed into a highly autonomous, constructivist activity that builds deep structural knowledge. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into the spoken word AI interactive voice simulations. Just like AI revolutionized translation, it is completely upgrading the audiolingual method. Remember that dreaded robotic choral drilling we talked about, repeating "the pen is on the table" 30 times in a row? It was rigid, totally decontextualized, and caused massive anxiety. Compare that to today's interactive AI simulations. Using modern generative voice AI, like Gemini Live, learners can engage in spontaneous, multi-turn discourse. The AI acts as a fully adaptive conversational partner. So if the student makes a mistake, the conversation doesn't just crash. The student has to actively negotiate meaning, use repair strategies, and respond to unpredictable, realistic dialogue. And the benefits here are truly revolutionary, mainly because of how they defeat our villain from earlier, the affective filter. Conversational AI companions are untiring and highly responsive. They use instant speech-to-text engines to provide objective diagnostic feedback on pronunciation without the harsh sting of a teacher's public reprimand. Because the environment is completely non-judgmental, it radically lowers the affective filter. Students actually feel safe taking linguistic risks. Furthermore, these tools offer immediate adaptive scaffolding, meaning they'll adjust their vocabulary level on the fly if the learner struggles. It preserves the intensive phonetic repetition of the old behaviorist drills, for sure, but it completely repackages it into a deeply engaging, context-rich, and personalized communicative experience. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the future of ELT. How do we pull all of this together, especially in modern distance education? Listen to this quote from the research because it perfectly captures our current reality. Future developments in networked communication, multimedia, and artificial intelligence will likely converge, creating a potentially more central role for the computer as a tool for authentic language exploration and use. We are quite literally living in that convergence right now. In distance education, we aren't just uploading PDFs of 19th century grammar worksheets to some learning management system. We're creating dynamic ecosystems. By integrating these AI tools thoughtfully, educators can ensure that learners receive the structural rigor they absolutely need, blended perfectly with authentic communicative tasks. So the crucial point is this: the old methods aren't obsolete, their mechanics were just incomplete. The grammar translation method gave us structural precision, and the audiolingual method gave us phonetic repetition. Modern digital tools, from DeepL to AI voice assistants, don't erase these fundamentals at all. They repurpose them. They strip away the passivity and the anxiety and replace them with dynamic, context-rich interactions. They bridge the historical gap between just knowing the rules of a language and actually possessing the communicative competence to use it out in the real world. Which leaves us with a really fascinating, provocative thought to end on. If an AI can perfectly simulate an untiring, non-judgmental conversational partner that instantly corrects grammar and lowers a student's anxiety, how must the role of the human language teacher evolve next? As students rely more and more on AI for structural auditing and conversational simulations, the human educator inevitably transitions from being a strict drill master to an instructional designer, a cultural guide, and a facilitator of deeper human connection. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the complex topics that shape our world.